Okay, so if you're building any kind of system where humans and AI have to work together, you already know that figuring out if it's actually working is, well, it's tough. You end up with these massive logs just full of events, but trying to make sense of them to see if the collaboration is effective, that is the real challenge. So today we're going to look at a really powerful, structured way to solve exactly that problem.
And this, right here, this is the most important question you can ask. See, your typical event logs, they capture everything. Every click, every keystroke, every API call. It's just this torrent of noise that's totally specific to how your app is built. Your log might say a user hovered over a button for 3 seconds before clicking it, but it doesn't tell you why. Was that hesitation? Was the AI's suggestion confusing? Your logs can't tell you that. What we really need is to zero in on the meaningful choices, the decisions that actually moved things forward.
So here's how we're going to break this down. First, we'll talk about the chaos of normal event logging. Then we'll introduce this new idea, a stable contract called the decision artifact. After that, we'll get our hands dirty with the HAIC libraries and walk through some code to see how you get from a few lines of code to real insight. And finally, we'll wrap up with why this whole approach is such a game changer. All right, part one, the chaos of event logging. This is the before picture, right? The messy reality that I'm sure a lot of us are living with right now. Let's just put these two approaches side by side. On the left, you've got your standard event logging. It is noisy, it's tied directly to your application's code, which means it's a nightmare to try and compare it across different systems. It basically just measures what happened. But now look at the right. Decision-centric logging is structured and ready for analysis right out of the box. It gives you a stable, portable contract, and this is the key, it measures what was decided. That's a much, much more valuable signal.
So, how do we get from the messy side to the clean side? Well, that brings us to our second section, and this is the core idea that makes everything else possible, the decision artifact.
The decision artifact is a really simple but powerful idea. It's just a file, specifically a JSON lines file, which means every line is its own little JSON object. And this one file becomes the single source of truth for an entire interaction. Think of it like a treaty, a contract between your application and your analysis tools. Your app promises to log decisions in this standard format, and in return, your analysis tools can guarantee you get reproducible, comparable results every single time. And because it's totally decoupled from your app's internal logic, it's incredibly portable. Okay, so we've got the concept. Now let's talk about the tools that actually make this happen. This brings us to the HAIC libs. The whole thing is really just split into two main libraries, and each one has a very clear job. First up, you've got haic-logging. This is the one you pull into your application. Its only job is to help you instrument your code and spit out those all-important decision artifacts. Then you've got haic-metrics. This is your offline analysis powerhouse. It takes those artifacts and computes all the key performance indicators for you. Simple, separate, and super effective. And here's what that workflow looks like from end to end. Your app uses haic-logging to create the artifacts. Those files get saved somewhere. Could be your local disk, could be cloud storage, doesn't matter. Then, totally separate from your live application, you run haic-metrics on those files to calculate all your KPIs. From there, you can feed those results into a dashboard, a research paper, you name it. And now for my favorite part. Let's see what this actually looks like in practice. Section 4, from code to insight, or as I like to call it, the one-liner payoff. All right, let's look at some code. It's actually this simple. First, you import the haic logger. Then, for every user session you want to track, you create a new logger instance. We'll just call this one session 123. Now for the magic part. Wherever a real decision happens in your code, you just add one line, logger.log decision. Here, we're logging one decision by a human and another by the AI. That's it. And when the session's over, you call export to save the file. It really is that straightforward. And here it is, the payoff. After you've added those few logging lines to your app, the entire analysis comes down to this. You import haic-metrics, and then you call one single function, report. You just point it at your artifact file. That's it. This one line of code does all the heavy lifting for you. It parses the data, calculates all the metrics, and builds a complete formatted report. And this is what pops out, a clean, easy-to-read Markdown report. It gives you a quick summary of the session and then dives right into the core metrics. You can see things like interaction frequency, how long actions took on average, and even a metric for efficiency loss. You go from raw interaction data to an actual actionable report in basically 2 steps. So what are these metrics anyway? Well, the framework has a whole catalog of them, but let's look at a few key ones. F is interaction frequency, basically the pace of the work. D is the mean duration of actions. TR can act as a proxy for trust in the AI. And EL, efficiency loss. This one's huge for spotting friction. Remember that 3-second hesitation we talked about at the beginning? EL is the metric that would actually quantify that hesitation, making an invisible problem suddenly visible and measurable. And the best part is, you get these core metrics even from the most basic logs. Okay, let's zoom out for our final section and look at the big picture. Section 5, why this matters. This is all about the core principles that make this approach so powerful and trustworthy. There are really 4 pillars that hold this whole thing up. First, decoupling. This means your analysis won't break every time you change your application code. Second, incremental adoption. You can start small, get value right away, and add more detail later. No need for a massive rewrite. Third, reproducibility. This is just non-negotiable for serious research. The artifacts are set in stone, so your results are always deterministic. And finally, a library-first design means these tools are super lightweight and can be plugged in anywhere, without locking you into some big platform. And this quote from the project's own guidelines just says it all perfectly. This isn't just about a cool new library or a clean coding style. It's about a methodologically sound, transparent, and rigorous way to evaluate these incredibly complex systems. It's about having a shared contract so we can all build better systems together. So I want to leave you with this one question to think about. When you go back and look at that massive stream of events your own systems are producing, what are the crucial decisions hiding in all that noise? Because once you start focusing on the decision, and not just the event, you can unlock a whole new level of understanding about how your humans and your AI are really working together.